You are listening to the Bring Joy Forward podcast. Conversations to explore, heal, and grow. You can find us on bringjoyforward.com and join us in our community group on Facebook. We now take you to the episode. Thank you for joining us. Hey everybody, it's the Shannon Show.
Yay!
I am Shannon Dias with Imagine Media, and I'm joined by Shannon Brown with Open Door Healing, and we sometimes call ourselves S Squared because, you know, the more the merrier, right? But we're here to talk to you today about, actually, I'm going to try to watch my ums today, so hopefully I can get through this. We are here today to talk about being in the moment, accessing that creative child, that inner child, and creating art, the practice of art. So I thought I would let Shannon start because she's been not having enough time for art lately. So I thought I'd let you start with that.
Okay, yes, I do love to do art. The canvas is a place where I can play, and it's a place where I can use my creativity and my imagination. And I have found actually lately when I do go to the canvas, sometimes I don't have anything in mind, and sometimes, honestly, the canvas has in mind what it wants. I may have a picture I want to paint, and it says, no, I want to be this. So that's been kind of an exciting thing to happen to me. And yeah, so sometimes I have no idea what's going to come out of the canvas, but whatever comes, I just allow it. And that's part of that play also, of just letting go, and that it has to be perfect. Or because honestly, when I paint and I'm playing with it, it's just for me. And once in a while, a friend or something, I'll post it on my uh, art Facebook page, and they'll say, "Hey, that's great. Can I buy it?" And I'm like, "Well, yeah, sure." But I'm not an artist who's painting to sell. I'm an artist who's painting to live. So
Yeah, and I'm going to jump right in on there because I think that is all artists to a certain degree, right? It's just that some have mastered the art of actually selling it afterwards and being able to do that as a full-time job, which is fabulous. I like to call it intuitive art. Everything that I'm doing pretty much is intuitive art, which is what you just described. The canvas can be anything for me, so it doesn't have to be an actual canvas. It's just whatever I'm creating is happening, right? And I think the same thing happens in terms of it's just deciding what it wants to be. It's art for me is this thing that lives inside me, and it's got a total mind of its own, and I'm just allowing it to do what it's going to do. And I think that I have ideas on stuff, right? You get that creative juices flowing or whatever, and you get those ideas. But then as it's coming out, it's a spiritual process for me. Like as it's coming out and happening, it's this whole thing that takes a life of its own. And it's not just where the joy lives for me. It's what's shown me how I can access joy again too, because that I used art in a lot of my healing through grief, which is how I got into doing this as a healing practice too. And I know you're similar in that. I kind of wanted to just talk about that for a little bit, like the practice of, you mentioned it a little bit, but the practice of allowing whatever is going to happen, you have to let go. So that's kind of a big deal to get out of your own way a little bit.
it
And let it
is,
go.
especially if now I'm not in the muggle world anymore, as I call it, as I'm a full-time grandma, but in management, I had to be in control of situations and things and like that. And so letting go of that control in other areas of my life was not easy for me to do. The adjustment of semi-retirement, although, and you have to have a certain control actually when you watch a 2 and 4 year old. I kind of I do my best to let them be free spirits and enjoy their childhood, but at the same time you have to keep them safe, and you have to have guidelines, which all children want anyway. They don't want to be totally free, but anyway, yes. And the one thing that I learned when I started my painting journey, which I believe was 3 years ago, yeah, it would have been 2020. And I started it through a course. And of course, I wanted my painting to look like my teacher's, and it looks nothing like my teacher. And I redid the course this past year, and it looks a lot closer. So all of the painting I've done, I've gotten better as far as I know what I want to paint. It's just that my hands hadn't learned, or it hadn't processed of how to do it.
Sure.
And I think my biggest lesson I had to learn while painting was that how I paint is how the creator paints through me, and nobody else can paint like me. And
Yeah.
so that was huge, and letting go of control.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
but I do want to throw in, we're talking about play. I don't, there's that, I don't normally
I
get
know.
my
Sorry.
my grandson as much anymore because he's in full-time preschool. But I had him today, and he had to have he had homework, which we had to do, and he had to paint rocks, and then we had to put
Yay.
words like joy and peace and stuff. And I just happened to have a rock painting kit that someone had given him on his birthday, and so that was fun. It was fun for
Yeah.
me.
Yeah.
But when we were through, he was like, "Can I go play now?"
Oh no.
Because he was having
It
fun, but
was
it
work
was
for him.
it was kind of work for him because he had to do it.
Yeah.
Where normally when he used to
Yeah.
be here, and when my granddaughter's here and they would say, "We want to paint," it was very organic, and I would just give them a paper plate and a canvas and let them paint. So this was something he had to do. I was
Yeah.
having fun, and it was interesting that his comment, "Can I go play now?" I'm like, well, this is kind of play, but maybe not, because he had to do it.
Well,
And maybe
exactly. Yeah.
that's the twist also when we're trying to bring play into our life is, can we make housework play? Because we're always thinking, I have to do this.
Yeah.
I have to sweep the floors, or it reminds me of, I don't even remember what my son did way back when, but he had to wash dishes for the rest of his life as long as he lived in our house. Okay, that was his punishment. And of course, it had something to do with his sister. But that boy would have so much fun washing dishes. There would be
I
so
love
many
it.
bubbles coming up. And he found joy in washing dishes. He found a way to make it fun. I
Yeah.
haven't gotten there much there yet after 62 years working on it, though.
Yeah.
But it reminds me sometimes of, Robert really had fun. How can I make this fun?
Yeah. No, I love that. It's the intention behind it, right? He probably figured I do similar things, I think, in most of what I'm doing, where I have to do it anyway, so I might as well have fun while I'm doing it. Like I say that even in my Muggle job, I say that often as well, where I got to be here anyway. I might as well have some fun while I'm doing it. But he looked at the situation and he found a way to make it so that I'm going to be in here. It's going to be a joyful experience for me, and he took it the next level. But that was a choice he made, right? So it's that intention, which that we talk about all the time. He had to decide what he was going to have with that experience. And I think that's where we don't take ownership a lot as humans. We're like, okay, this situation happened to me, or this person did this to me, or I have to paint these rocks, right? Like, so we don't take the ownership of our actions with that, right?
Right.
But then also too, like, just the whole concept of that felt like work to him because he wasn't the one deciding it. And
Right.
I love that that is so relevant across everything, because I think, like, so I'm an artist, and I do have stuff out there for sale when I can manage to get myself around it, because I also paint for me. I create for me because it has to happen. It has to come out and do its thing, right? But that aspect of doing something because somebody told me to, even if it's me telling me to, I think, like you have to finish this so that you can put it in the storefront so that you can sell it. Like that just feels like work. And I think you hit on it right there. Like, the little guy, I don't want to say his name, but the little guy, um, solving what every creative individual is having to deal with in their work life because it just feels like work. So it's like, how do we do that, right? How do we manage both of those where, we do make it fun, or maybe we don't do it that way or don't do it at all. And I think that's what happens a lot of times is we just walk away from it and it changes into something else. But when we have the ability to make that choice and say, yes, this is what I want to do, we've taken ownership of that. We've decided I want to do this. So it's okay for us, so we're having fun now because we decided. So if we can make that decision, even when somebody else tells us to do it, okay, you have to wash these dishes. You're deciding, oh, I want to have bubbles in here. You know what I mean? Like you're taking that,
Right.
I don't know, maybe he just figured out the secret to it.
Well, yeah, my son kind of figured out the secret to life pretty early, and he he's a pretty go lucky guy. I mean, he tries to find the humor and happy go lucky. That's what I meant to say. He was one of those that in third grade told his teacher, I really have better things to do than listen to you talk all day. And of course there was a phone call immediately.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, he lives on a 300-acre farm. He spends all his extra time on a tractor with his dad. So yes, he does have better things to do. And what does he do for a living? He runs a winery and he sits on a tractor all day.
Yeah.
So he figured out early that all of the stuff that he was being told that, taught, and 99% of it was probably BS. Okay. Right. So then he had to find a way. Okay, I know this is BS. How do I make it through this with humor? And I guess joy. So I guess maybe that's another big lesson that I need to remember of his, that yes, there's a lot of BS that we have to do in our lives. I've had a situation in the last week that it's a lot of BS, and I'm trying to find the gift in it and the joy in it.
Yeah, right. For those of you listening to on the podcast, she's making air quotes.
Oh, yes,
around the gift and the joy.
Yes, sorry about that.
No, that's okay.
Yes. So, yes, trying to find the joy in this particular part of my journey is and the play. So yeah, how can I make this into play? All right, that's like a challenge to me right now. Okay, Shannon, let's make this into play.
Yeah. Well, and sometimes even like we talk about play like it's this big benefit all the time, right? Because we're pretty much big kids. We like to live in that land of make believe and making messes and all that kind of stuff. Some of that stresses people out. Making the mess is if you had to put my dad in a creative room, he would lose his mind, right? So it's that aspect of it isn't for everybody, but like just finding I guess that control and that ability, right? So you're choosing to do that, but sometimes we don't want to. So sometimes we use art to recenter and relax and and be mindful. So it's not always play is not always actual boisterous, messy play, right? Sometimes those things that we access, those inner child types of things, they're actually serving some pretty deep purposes if you're using those tools that way. So like even working with mandalas and doing some very specific line art designs and coloring, simplistic just coloring, right? Just all of these little things that you're just giving your brain a rest. You're doing some easy, you don't have to think about it, it's monotonous, whatever, but it's also on the fun side, right? So but you're doing it quietly, and it's kind of like when you had the kids when they were running around, just go sit and color for a little bit. Like you're giving them the quiet activity. And I feel like that's the same way for us as adults. Like we still need those quiet activities that are childlike, you know? I mean, even the
Yes.
simple things of, I do a lot of um, ritualistic type of mindfulness things too, where I have candles and things like that, right? So even the little thing of lighting the flame of a candle and staring into a candle, it still feels like play to me, right? So it's those activities, but you have to access it, right? So you're making the choice to do it and you're putting yourself in those situations. And I think the benefit of doing it, um, mostly for me, is that you're letting go of all of those, you know, brain things that get in the way, where your brain starts to think about 1,000 things, or it's telling you you have to do it this way. You get that ego mind who is starting to argue with you about stuff, and you know, maybe you're hearing everything else that's going on in the background or whatever, and you just put on some meditative music and put a candle on, or sit down and color or whatever. You're allowing all of that stuff to slip away so that you can hear better, hear yourself, you know, connect to spirit, who you believe in, from above and below. So you're in that sacred space, right? It's both.
Yes. Yes.
I I I want to kind of jump on that a little bit, and we're coming up about 15 minutes, so actually a little bit over 15 minutes. So we're gonna try to keep these fairly short. But before we jump off, I just want to kind of go down the road of recognizing, because we're always looking at this from a mental wellness perspective, right? Everything that we're doing is so that we're not just out here chasing joy for the sake of chasing joy, right? We're physically, spiritually, mentally healthier when we are putting ourselves in those places, for the opportunity of it. So before we jump off onto that, I just want to kind of touch on the recognizing in your body when you might need actually to utilize these tools and slow down and play and throw paint around, and also to acknowledge that you do not have to be an artist, nor should you be an artist to do all of this. You just being human is the requirement for any of these things that we're talking about. So
Exactly.
feeling it in your body, noticing some tense areas in your body, paying attention if you are holding your breath, if you are going really fast, moving from one thing to another really fast, if your brain is not slowing down anymore. And feel free to jump in too on any of these. And yeah, just recognizing when you maybe might need to pause, and knowing that it does not have to be a 2-hour activity. You can doodle in short periods of time, and you have been doing it since you were a kid in school, drawing in the margins of your math book or your history, notebook or whatever, because you weren't paying attention, right? So it's those little moments.
So I think that's very important that we learn the signals from our body, because if we don't learn the subtle signals, it will continue to get louder and louder and louder. And when you get past the point of, oh, I can take a moment and do this and release this tension, and it's built up so much. And I will say this, as I am a little older now, that it does take a while to bounce back as we get older. And the more that we hang on to those things. So that is such a very important point, is to figure out how your body talks to you, because everybody's body talks to them differently. You may just need to stop and get a drink of water. That may be the thing that your body's like, I really need. And it's just the moment. And then drinking that water, just holding it and blessing the water and just taking that 30 seconds to enjoy that water does so much for your body than just saying, well, no, I'll get a drink later when I get this done.
Right.
It's like you were saying, you just take that time, that couple minutes to doodle, just grab you've got paper all over the house. I do, lined
Right.
paper and grocery store list, or whatever. Just, yeah, find a way. But I think that first thing is to learn how your body speaks to you.
Yeah, no, agreed. Very good point. And that's it. We talk a lot about it in our groups, and we do as individual practitioners, we work through a lot of that. But everything, like you said, everything comes from knowing yourself, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's what we're here for, is to kind of just throw those little ideas out there so you can start to recognize and work with the things, so you can be familiar with yourself and recognize when you need it. It's kind of like the parents knowing the kids, like, what they need, the mother always knows, like those kind of things. It's the same thing, like just learning to recognize what you need. And sometimes just putting reminders, even, on your phone and in your calendar and things like that, because we forget to check in on ourselves. So just giving ourselves that little bit of accountability to do that, I think is really important. Did you have anything else that you wanted to add before we close up today?
No, I think that was a pretty good session. I know I need
Yeah.
to, and I'm just coming from experience, because this year my body has really talked to me a lot. and just saying, hey, you need to notice, and you need to take better care of me, and you need to play more. Definitely play more. Because
Absolutely.
no one down their deathbed said, I wish I'd have watched all 652 episodes of Rizzoli and Isles two more times, right? They're going to say, I wish I'd enjoyed myself more, or, I'd thrown the ball with my dog more, or whatever brings you joy and allows play into your life. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. It gets you to that point where you're feeling it. You're bubbling up, right? That's the goal there, is that you're bubbling up, or you're zoning out into it. You're escaping into that art, and that's giving you a release, because either way, you are giving your body, mind, or spirit what it needs at that moment. If you can allow yourself to kind of just give into it for, little bits of time. I like to throw myself into play as much as possible, because why not? Like, what else are we doing here if it's not for us to try to have as much fun, while we're here? Like,
exactly.
I can't believe that we're here just to keep working and slaving, and that just doesn't feel right to me. So maybe that's why I chased it so much, all my life. But like, you have to allow yourself that opportunity to do that, and the best way to do that is to be in community, because we'll remind you
Yes,
as we do each other. Well, we appreciate you hanging out with us today. You have been listening to the Bring Joy Forward podcast. My name is Shannon Dias. You have also been listening to Shannon Brown. You can find us on our Facebook community group. We have a Facebook page and a community group, both at Bring Joy Forward. And you can find everything else about us at bringjoyforward.com. If you think you'd like to be a guest on the podcast, we also have a spot for you to fill out a form for that too. So thank you so much for listening. We appreciate you very much.
Ciao.
You have been listening to the Bring Joy Forward podcast. Conversations to explore, heal, and grow. You can find us at bringjoyforward.com, and we'd love to have you join us in our community Facebook group. Thank you for listening.